Star Trek may seem like a perfect galaxy, but piracy still exists in the universe. The premiere episode of Star Trek Starfleet Academy recently introduced a new faction of antagonists to the post-burn Star Trek universe, the Venari Ral, a vicious band of pirates. Very little is known about them at the time of writing, but as we wait for more information to be revealed, it's worth taking a look at piracy in Star Trek in general. Space pirates are lurked beyond the fringes of civilization in virtually every Star Trek series so far, and they're as varied as the empires and great powers that otherwise dominate the known galaxy. But how did piracy actually work in Star Trek? What were the major pirate syndicates? In this video, we'll be answering those questions. Hey everyone, my name is Captain Jack, and this is Trek Central. Pirates in the Star Trek universe were a diverse bunch that made use of an even more diverse set of tactics, usually carving out a living by ambushing starships to plunder. Typically, they focus on easy prey, but some were bold enough to pick a fight with Starfleet, luring Starfleet vessels out to remote regions in order to isolate, disable, and board them. Space pirates were most common on the fringes of known space, in territories that weren't under the control of any of the galaxy's major governments, but some operated in the outer territories of major powers, the Federation included. Whilst most galactic powers did their best to patrol their territory and keep it pirate-free, this was easier said than done. Space is big and largely empty, and even when a government could maintain security in all star systems within its territories, that still leaves a lot of a void for starships to hide in, waiting to ambush passing vessels. Nonetheless, piracy was still mostly limited to the outer regions of Star Trek's major civilizations. In large part because people living in more remote and isolated parts of space were more likely to be desperate enough to turn to piracy. While there were a few peoples in the galaxy who built whole societies around piracy, most pirates were driven by desperation, and as a consequence, pirates tend to be more common in chaotic times. Up to the 22nd century, many parts of what would later become the core territories of the Federation were plagued by pirates, who regularly harassed freighters travelling the shipping lanes between Earth and its colonies. Most prominently, these included large numbers of Nausican and Orion pirates, giving humanity a poor first impression of both species. Nausican society at this time was in constant chaos, presided over by a series of weak, unstable, and ultimately short-lived governments, and this led many among the frequently violent Nausicans to turn to piracy to make a living, striking from asteroid bases and other hidden redoubts. Nausicaan pirate vessels regularly harassed Earth cargo service freighters, stealing their cargo and imperiling the Earth colonies that depended on them. Many of the Earth ships targeted by Nausicaan pirates were destroyed, as was the case with the ECS North Star, leaving many in the ECS with a deep hatred of Nausicaans. In 2151, the Earth Starfleet ship, Enterprise NX-01, was sent to rescue one such ECS freighter, the Fortunate, from a pirate attack. While the raiders were driven off, the embittered crew of Fortunate sought revenge, attempting an assault on a Nausicaan asteroid base, but Enterprise was able to defuse the situation before the crew of the Fortunate got themselves killed. While many Nausicaan pirates had their own crews, others worked for larger, more established criminal organisations, most prominently the Orion Syndicate. The Orion Syndicate was one of the region's most powerful criminal syndicates, with de facto control over Orion society in general during the 22nd century. It outright controlled a large swath of space, and it was involved in slave trading, racketeering, smuggling, and many other criminal enterprises, as well as piracy. Orion pirates often raided starships in search of prisoners who the Syndicate could sell into slavery, and they were bold enough to even attack Enterprise NX-01 on at least one occasion. The Syndicate was also known to attempt to destabilize planetary governments and other powerful institutions to make things easier for their pirate fleets, often through the use of Orion slave girls. Contrary to outward appearances and the assumption of most outsiders, these slaves actually ran the Orion Syndicate, and they often had themselves sold to people in positions of power to manipulate them to their own ends. The Orions were so heavily involved with piracy in the pre-Federation era, and even in the early years of the Federation, that many people were under the assumption that all Orions were pirates or involved with the Orion Syndicate. This stereotype persisted long after the Orions became more integrated with the interstellar community, and Orion piracy began to decline, the frustration of many Orions who did attempt to do something else with their lives.
These two are from the future, and we need the portal to get them home.
Really? To a future where it's considered offensive to assume an Orion is a pirate.
After the formation of the United Federation of Planets, piracy in this part of the galaxy declined sharply, and as the Federation expanded, this new safe region of space expanded with it. Part of this was standard patrols from Starfleet vessels, keeping starships safe, but it's likely that the prosperity the Federation brought played a key role as well, I mean, there's fewer reasons to turn to piracy when your basic needs are being met and you can live a comfortable life instead. Nonetheless, pirate activity did continue into the age of the Federation. The Orion Syndicate, while reduced in scale, continued operating well into the 24th century, and Starfleet vessels repeatedly had run-ins with Orion pirates throughout the 23rd century. The Orion Syndicate even attempted to keep worlds out of the Federation through espionage and sabotage, so that the pirates could stay in business in those regions of space. Ferengi pirates also started to become a problem for the outlying regions of the Federation in the mid-24th century. Many Ferengi pirate vessels were bold enough to go up against Starfleet, eager to take anything they could sell on for a profit. The Ferengi weren't a big pirate species like the Nausicaans or the Orions, though some might argue that their business practices weren't far removed from piracy, and even Ferengi piracy seemed to peak in the late 2360s, but they were still one of the larger pirate threats affecting the Federation at this time. In the 31st century, after the burn severely weakened the Federation and largely unraveled interstellar society, piracy skyrocketed once again, especially as dilithium became extremely scarce. Both independent pirates and members of larger syndicates roamed the stars, stealing whatever dilithium they could find, and few governments had the power to keep them at bay. Some pirate syndicates in this era were powerful enough to be de facto governments in their own right, most notably the Emerald Chain, an Orion and Andorian-run syndicate that was roughly as powerful as the contemporary Federation. While the Emerald Chain maintained a degree of law and order within its own territory, it was still run more as a crime syndicate than a state. Slavery was common in the Emerald Chain territory, and Emerald Chain privateers regularly harassed worlds and ships not affiliated with the syndicate. Even when the Emerald Chain engaged in legitimate trade, it was typically exploitive and little different from piracy. The Emerald Chain's piracy and exploitive trade gave it control over considerable stores of dilithium, and it also uses activities to fund research into dilithium alternatives and other methods of faster than light travel, which the leaders hoped would allow the Emerald Chain to become a new dominant regional power. Fortunately, the Crossfield class USS Discovery was ultimately able to discover a new source of dilithium, and the Emerald Chain fractured after its leaders were killed and its flagship was destroyed in battle with Starfleet. Emerald Chain dead-enders kept some of the Syndicate's operations alive, but as the Federation began to rebuild, pirates were again driven to the fringes, and the Emerald Chain declined. Of course, there were far more pirates than just the Emerald Chain in the post-burn era. Another major pirate syndicate was the Venari Ral, which maintained a large fleet but was strong enough to menace what had previously been some of the Federation's most powerful leading members. The Venari Ral often attacked Starfleet itself, killing many Starfleet officers and boarding Starfleet vessels from time to time. They also routinely attacked Beta-Z, a former Federation member, forcing the Betazoids to create a cyclonic wall around their territory to keep the Marauders at bay. The first Venari assault in the 1390s devastated Beta-Z, and though their later raids were repulsed by the wall, the pirates kept coming. Even after the Federation began to rebound, the Venari Ral was still strong enough to carry out regular mass attacks against Betazoid space, suggesting that even as the Federation began to restore peace and prosperity in the post-burn galaxy, pirate syndicates were still a major threat. So that's our look at pirates in Star Trek. Like always, if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. A big thank you to everyone who supports us on Patreon. Your support allows us to continue making these Galaxy class videos. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper my friends, goodbye.